You and your friends are coming to the latest information, the most notable current events on the YouTube channel of Nghe An Newspaper, the digital infrastructure of Nghe An Newspaper and radio and television. To know what the program is about today, please follow along below.
Venezuela began 3 days of military exercises on the Caribbean island of La Acala on September 17, according to AFP. Amid rising tensions over U.S. military activity in the region, Venezuelan Defense Minister Vladimir Patrino Lopez said the exercises were directed by President Nicolas Maduro. Speaking at the launch of the Caribbean sovereignty exercise, Lopez said there would be air defense deployments using armed UAVs and anti-drone submersibles. We will carry out electronic warfare operations. The Venezuelan military has mobilized 12 ships, 22 aircraft and 20 small boats from the Special Maritime Militia for the exercises. Video released by the Venezuelan military shows the T-61 landing ship with Marines, light tanks, armored personnel carriers and many vehicles being deployed to the base on La Aquila Island. La Aquila Island is located in the Caribbean Sea, where Venezuela last week, the U.S. intercepted and detained a fishing vessel in its exclusive economic zone for 8 hours. U.S. officials insisted the vessel was in international waters and denied allegations that they held the fishermen for 8 hours. Tensions between the U.S. and Venezuela have escalated recently after the U.S. announced on Monday that it had blown up a drug boat in the Caribbean, killing 11 suspected members of the Chanda Aragua gang. Then on March 15, Mr. Trump announced that U.S. forces had attacked a second boat in international waters, killing 3 people. The U.S. leader also described them as narco-terrorists. A day later, Mr. Trump said U.S. forces had sunk a total of 3 boats from Venezuela. The U.S. also maintains a large military presence in the Caribbean, with at least 8 warships, 4,500 Marines and numerous warplanes. Explaining the reason for the increased military presence in the Caribbean, AFP quoted Mr. Trump as arguing, "Violent drug trafficking gangs pose a threat to national security, foreign policy and important U.S. interests." For his part, Venezuelan President Maduro said that recent U.S. moves were an act of aggression, and said that the communication channel between the government and the government had almost stopped working. The Guardian quoted Venezuelan Interior Minister Dios Cabello as asking, "People don't know because they say it's carrying drugs, but who has seen the drugs?" Mr. Cabello said that he has been actively cracking down on drug gangs, and has seized more than 60 tons of drugs in 2025. A rare incident just happened in the sky of New York when Air Force One carrying U.S. President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump on a state visit to the UK almost collided with a commercial flight of Spirit Airlines. Specifically, according to the recording from the air traffic control system published on .net on the morning of March 16, Spirit Airlines Flight 1300 departing from Fort Lauderdale, USA to Boston, USA flew too close to the presidential plane. The distance between the 2 planes was recorded as only 8 miles when they passed the same point on the flight path less than 1 minute apart. The air traffic controller repeatedly issued emergency warnings asking the Spirit plane to change direction 20 degrees to avoid danger. In a moment of impatience, this person even had to shout loudly to concentrate and put down the iPad. This implies that the pilot may be using a tablet in the cockpit. The conversation also shows the controller repeating the instructions at least 4 times and constantly warning that a Boeing 747, which is Air Force One, is approaching. The person said, "You must have seen it, it's painted white and blue, pay attention." After the 2 flight paths separated safely, the controller still couldn't hide his anger and said, "Do I have to tell you twice every time?" Spirit Airlines later issued a statement confirming that the flight had followed the controller's procedures and instructions for a short time, while emphasizing that safety is always the top priority. The flight landed safely in Boston without any problems. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration has not yet commented on the incident, which was first discovered from a post on social network X. The plane landed safely at Londonstead Airport at 9 p.m. local time the same day. Mr. Tram then stayed at the U.S. ambassador's residence in London before meeting with King Charles III the following day.
September 17. European media reported that Hungary and Slovakia have signaled they will resist pressure from President Donald Trump to cut oil and gas imports from Russia until EU member states find alternative supplies. Accordingly, Slovakia's Minister of Economy Denisa Sakova said that before making a formal commitment, the country needs to be assured of the right conditions, otherwise it will cause serious damage to Slovakia's industry and economy. Ms. Sakova added that there must be enough infrastructure to support alternative routes before making bigger decisions related to cutting fuel from Russia. She made Slovakia's position clear in talks with U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Gu in Vienna this week. The minister shared that Mr. Kai's White agreed with views that acknowledged the U.S. needed to promote energy projects in Europe. Ms. Sakova added that Mr. White agreed with views that acknowledged the U.S. needed to promote energy projects in Europe. In a related development, Minister in charge of the Prime Minister's office Gel Gulyas reaffirmed Hungary's stance that it will reject EU initiatives that threaten its energy security. Hungary strongly opposes the cut in Russian energy supplies, arguing that this will increase prices, harm its economy in particular and Europe in general, and violate the sovereignty of member states. The country stressed its heavy dependence on Russian energy and called on the EU to engage in direct dialogue with Russia to reach an agreement on security and economy instead of imposing harsh measures that could cause damage to all parties. Over the weekend, President Trump said he was ready to impose sanctions on Russian oil if European countries took similar action. The Slovak government is ready to close energy transport routes with Russia if the country has enough infrastructure to transport large volumes of oil. Slovakia and Hungary are two countries that have long been dependent on fuel from Russia. Since the conflict began in 2022, both countries have launched a number of energy diversification initiatives. Slovakia imports around a third of its oil from non-Russian sources via the Algerian pipeline through the Balkan region, and Hungary has signed a series of flexible contracts with Western gas suppliers. However, the Slovak government has always maintained its relationship with Russia, viewing its energy supplies from Russia as extremely important and strategic. Similarly, Minister Gulyas said at a press conference in Budapest that Hungary considers EU sanctions against Russia ineffective and will continue to prevent steps that threaten its energy supplies.
On September 17th, Ghazi Hamas, a member of the political leadership of the Hamas militant group, appeared on television for the first time since Israel's raid on the group's leaders in Qatar on September 9. In a live interview with the Al Azra channel, Ghazi Hamas said the attack happened less than an hour after we began studying the proposal for a ceasefire in Gaza. Hamas said that about 12 rockets fell in less than a minute. At that time, we were absolutely sure that it was an Israeli attack. God has decided that everyone will survive this aggression against us in Qatar. He said that on September 9th, the Israeli Defense Force, IDF, deployed 15 fighter jets to the Red Sea and fired at least 10 cruise missiles at the office of the Hamas political leadership in Doha. Israel targeted the entire top leadership of Hamas as they were meeting to discuss a peace proposal for Gaza put forward by U.S. President Donald Trump. 5 low-ranking Hamas members and a Qatari security officer meditated online. But the group's political leadership escaped death by moving outside the meeting room to pray as the rocket struck. According to sources close to Hamas, Mr. Hamas was one of 6 members of the leadership targeted by Israel. The meeting also included Chief Negotiator Kalan Anhaya, former Chief Negotiator Kal Mezin, West Bank Chief Jarin, and 2 political officials, Bassem Naim and Tamnu.
On September 17th, deputy spokesperson of the Thai Police Department Nghe An Newspaper denied that former Prime Minister Thin Shinawatra bought pizza for 6,500 guards and inmates to hold a party at Song Prem Central Prison, where he is serving his sentence in Bangkok. This statement was in response to information given by former artist Wach Arafet, accused former Prime Minister Thak San of ordering pizza last week to hold a party in prison for guards and inmates to gain influence inside the prison. According to Mr. Phetthong, the amount of money Thak Xian spent on pizza exceeded the daily limit allowed for the prison. And Can One said this was a misunderstanding, explaining that some outsiders bought pizza on the 13th for police and guards coordinating security traffic on the road in front of the prison. Mr. P. Ringrot, director of Tsongrem Central Prison, confirmed that the donated visas had nothing to do with Mr. Thin. The deputy spokeswoman for the Department of Corrections added that prison directors have the right to decide whether inmates are allowed to host parties for fellow inmates by buying food.as with New Year's birthdays. She stressed that these events are only allowed occasionally to prevent prisoners from using them to gain influence in the prison. Thak Xin is being held at Song Brem prison in Bangkok after the Thai High Court determined that he had not served his sentence properly in 2023 and must serve a year in prison. Song Rem is one of Thailand's strictest detention facilities. Thak Xin was transferred to the prison's medical treatment area on May 15 due to his age and chronic health conditions. As of May 17, he was still in the infirmary, spending most of his time reading. The Department of Corrections is considering assigning Thak Xin to be a language teacher for other inmates. Recently, General That Chai Pilabut, Inspector General of the National Police and head of the PCT Cyber Police Task Force of Thailand, held a press conference after a 10-hour meeting with Lieutenant General Zangies, Deputy Commander of the National Police of Cambodia, to address the issue of cybercrime and cross-border fraud. The meeting ended with the two sides signing a joint agreement, agreeing to cooperate in cracking down on fraudsters. Accordingly, Cambodia will launch a campaign to crack down within 1 month, while Thailand will monitor online complaints. Mr. That Chai said the meeting took place after the negotiation room of the Cambodia-Thailand Border Committee, GBC, on 10th of March in Cambodia focused on dismantling fraudsters of Thai citizens and remembering a broader effort to combat the problem of technology crime. The discussions highlighted the serious impact of fraudsters and human trafficking centers that cause panic and great damage. The Thai side provided the Cambodian side with detailed information on the call center groups that had been identified to support the sweep. Cambodian authorities pledged to develop a crackdown plan targeting the centers identified by Thailand. The results of the campaign will be reported at the next GBC meeting. That Trey noted that the meeting lasted more than 10 hours due to the need to carefully negotiate the details of the agreement. In the end, the two sides reached a consensus. Thailand will closely monitor the effectiveness of Cambodia's measures by monitoring online complaints from Thai victims.
Recently, the Chinese embassy in New Zealand said it had sent a strong protest note to the New Zealand government about the groundless harassment and temporary detention of Chinese citizens' devices when entering and transiting through the country's airports. Specifically, in a statement posted on its official WeChat account, the Chinese embassy in New Zealand accused local intelligence agencies of groundlessly interrogating and temporarily seizing the personal electronic devices of some Chinese citizens when they were in transit. The agency also said it had recorded a number of similar cases before when Chinese citizens entered or transited through New Zealand. The Chinese embassy representative has sternly communicated with the New Zealand side, expressing strong opposition to the measures considered unreasonable, and at the same time demanding that the New Zealand government stop the harassment, respect the legitimate rights and interests of Chinese citizens, and ensure a safe, friendly, and non-discriminatory environment for Chinese students, tourists and passengers when arriving or transiting through New Zealand. At the same time, the Chinese embassy recommends that Chinese citizens planning to transit through New Zealand or staying here raise their awareness of safety, carefully prepare documents and equipment before completing immigration procedures. In case of need, they can promptly contact the Chinese representative agencies in New Zealand for consular protection and support, responding to the above information. The New Zealand side said that all entrants must comply with the laws and regulations of this country, especially those related to national security and border security. The New Zealand Ministry of Foreign Affairs stressed that the enforcement of these regulations is applied equally, regardless of nationality, and said that it has discussed and explained related cases with the Chinese embassy. New Zealand also affirmed that the enforcement process is subject to independent and strict supervision.
During a rehearsal for an air show in China on September 16, two aircraft collided in midair. After the collision, one of the aircraft crashed to the ground and burst into flames upon impact. Video footage released by Chinese state media showed the two aircraft performing aerial maneuvers in formation flying close together. The footage then cuts to one vehicle engulfed in flames as rescue workers arrive at the scene. The incident occurred in Changchun, Jilin Province, China. As the city prepares for the 5-day air show, scheduled to open on September 19, the aircraft, also known as electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, evatones or flying taxis, are being developed by Sperm Aero HT, one of Asia's largest aircraft companies and a subsidiary of electric vehicle maker XP Group. The company said the crash was caused by insufficient clearance and confirmed an investigation is underway. Spur Eurust said one aircraft suffered damage to its fuselage and caught fire upon landing. The company added that all personnel at the scene were safe and that local authorities had completed emergency response measures in an orderly manner. The Avans are expected to sell for close to $300,000 each. XP Eurot said in January it had received 3,000 orders. The incident has raised concerns about the safety of the aircraft and the challenges ahead in commercializing them. The aircraft are part of China's plan to develop a low-altitude aviation economy, referring to services that involve aircraft flying below 3,000 meters, such as UAV deliveries, flying taxis, and other unmanned aviation services. The sector is expected to reach $206 billion this year and could grow to a market size of $482 billion by 2035, according to China's civil aviation regulator. However, it faces major hurdles including inadequate infrastructure such as landing and takeoff points, regulatory challenges, technological reliability, and public acceptance.
The interim government formed after 2 days of protests last week has declared a national day of mourning on September 17th, in memory of those killed in youth-led anti-corruption protests, the Home Ministry said, according to the ASP news agency. The protests began on September 8th after a social media ban in Nepal, but quickly spread amid public anger over corruption and persistent economic hardship. At least 19 people were killed on the first day, as authorities used force to quell the crowds. The anger then escalated, sparking a wave of anger across the country that led to the torching of government offices, a Houston hotel, and other buildings. Hami Nepal, a key organization in the protests, said the changes we see today would not have been possible without the courage and sacrifice of those who died in the protests. Interim Prime Minister Susila Kaki, 73, a former Supreme Court judge, has been tasked with restoring order and addressing protesters' demands for a corruption-free future ahead of elections due in 6 months. Shop owner Puza, 22, said the National Day of Mourning would also bring people together. We are all sad about what happened, about the lives lost. We are all young people like us. The situation has improved and we hope the new government will bring the changes we need. According to the World Bank, 1 in 5 Nepalese youth aged 15 to 24 are unemployed, with GDP per capita at just $1 for 47 on September 17th. Police spokesman Binit Ken updated the death toll from the protests to nearly 73, including police and prisoners. He said more than a third of the 13,500 prisoners who escaped from about 20 prisons during the protests had been recaptured or volunteered. Many of the prisoners still at large include notorious criminals. Karen said about 5,000 prisoners have returned to prison so far. Many of them volunteered. Last week, Avinat Ray, 46, a convicted smuggler, shocked his family by showing up at his home in Kathmandu during anti-government protests in Nepal. Protesters then triggered security across the capital, breaching several buildings in the city, including Naku prison where Rai was serving time. We were on our own, there was no police around, there was arson and the prison gate was opened, Ray said. When he stepped outside the prison, Ray saw chaos and fires burning around the city. Ray said it was a really bad time. On September 17th, Ray returned to Naku prison, walked through the burnt gate and surrendered to the police. Nepalese security forces have restored order at the prison and are trying to track down the escaped inmates.